Welcome back to Not Alone. Today's guest is going to bridge so many industries together, from the beef industry, your health, family, life, and faith. I am deeply honored to have Steve Polski here. He has been a friend, a mentor, guiding me through my first book, Just a Connection, through social media. And he has shared his stories with me, and since then we've just connected back and forth, and finally God put it on my heart to have him on as a guest, because I know his message is very important today that will bridge all these industries together and debunk some of the myths out there. And so it is quite an honor. Steve Polski is the CEO of Permanent Farming. We're going to talk about regenerative agriculture and what is coming here even in Arizona, and how the root cause of a lot of these industries is actually our soil, and how we need nutrient dense soil for the animals to graze on, so then we are well nourished as well. So welcome today, Steve Polski. I am so honored.
Thank you very much, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you. Now, I feel like this is the first time we meet in person, and I know we've tried many times in between our schedules. It just wasn't aligning, but God kept on planting that seed. I need to meet with you. I need to share your story, your background, and where you're at today. So I know our audience don't know anything about you. So to start off, just explaining a little bit what you do and your background.
Sure. I'm a native Minnesotan. I moved to Arizona 7 years ago, or almost 7 years ago. I've spent the last 20 years in really the food and agricultural space. Worked for the world's largest commodity trader processor based in Minnesota. Was blessed to have worked in many places throughout the world, and the world got bigger and smaller at the same time, but learned a lot about the current food system and how food is produced, but also started to understand the gaps in that system, and what are those things that we could and should do better, which ultimately resulted in my partners and I forming Permanent Farming 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So and so you said you started that company because you started seeing that the system needs to change. Mm-hmm. And what were you seeing that wasn't aligning anymore, and you're like, I'm going to change the structure of this industry? You
know, there was a lot of things, and it's not that the industry was doing anything wrong, but one of my personal passions is continuous improvement and eliminating waste. And prior to getting into food and agriculture, I worked for a company called Anderson Windows and Doors, where I learned the manufacturing business and what I would call the discrete world, where you take multiple things of lesser value to create something of greater value, whether it's an automobile, a window, a door, a cell phone, or you name it. And the success of your business is highly contingent on the success of your supply chain. And so we treated our suppliers as good as our customers. And in agriculture, in global commodity trading, there's a lot of wins and losses. One part of the supply chain is making a lot of money, and other parts of the supply chain aren't making any money, in fact, losing money. And I believe there's a better way to where, when times are good, everybody should be able to, return their get a solid earnings or get a return on their invested capital, versus it always being one person or the other person. So when times are good, when the water rises, it should float all boats, but you shouldn't have to sink. Any part of that shouldn't sink disproportionately to the other when times are tough. Mm-hmm.
And so you're speaking more towards like the farmers then?
Yeah. Well, in the beef industry, there's more years where the farmer makes money and a processor loses money, and vice versa, than all of them making money collaboratively at the same time.
Okay, so you're helping them just stay, where it's evened out.
That is the vision.
The vision.
That is the vision. And in order to do that, we have to do things in the supply chain that are a little bit different as well. We don't say it's the cow, we say it's the how. And I like that. and we can talk more about that in a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'm just really curious about how I know we had talked before. I'm curious because I'm really picky in the type of beef. I do love eating beef. I feel it really nourishes my body. Everybody's different, but it craves it. But I usually buy grass-fed, organic, or even local. I try to find local farms and whatnot. But I know in our conversation, he's like, well, it all comes from the same, there's only 4, I think you said, industries and...
Four major players in true beef cattle production, processors,
Okay.
That control about 85% of the market.
So then when I go buy the grass-fed beef compared to just the regular, is it all coming from the same place? Am I getting the quality out of it? Where... maybe you can, am I making the right choices? Is there a difference?
Well, there's a lot of really good niche beef brands out there, but, we're trying to feed a global population. And so the ability to scale some of the smaller niche opportunities is very difficult and challenging because somebody's got to pay a premium for that. And not every consumer can afford a niche premium brand that's got what I'd say provenance and traceability all the way from the pasture through the processing of the animal.
Right. So now, do you tend to buy the higher end beef, knowing everything that you know in the beef industry, or do you, where do you come from as a consumer?
You know what, as a consumer, I love beef, and so the USDA, it's a governing and regulatory arm of the United States. The USDA grades beef, whether it's, prime, choice, select, and their grading system has embedded premiums. And the companies that are doing the processing, cutting those steaks and making certain they're the right size and meeting specifications for retailers, they do a really good job. So I can't really criticize the industry for not putting quality product out there, because they do on large scale as well as small scale. But I think it comes down to consumer preferences, and there's traceability in these supply chains are very difficult because they're very large supply chains. In order to invest in traceability and the technology to do it and really understand the chain of custody and so forth is really hard. But I think we need it all. We need the large scale guys, we need the medium guys, we need the niche brands. We need to provide whatever it is consumers are asking for.
Yeah.
I think there's a place for it all, is what I'm trying to say.
Okay. Well, I like that because sometimes it is confusing. And if I'm paying premium, am I just wasting money compared to this, the other one? But it always feels good for me I'm like, okay, I put a premium on my health, my nutrition. And
absolutely.
And so I love that you are part, though, of changing the soil. So explain because the beef industry is a big proponent of emissions, right? Mm-hmm. And so with regenerative agriculture, it's going to actually lower the emissions. Is that correct?
Well, yes, absolutely it can. And so at Permanent Farming, we believe that beef cattle should be in 2 places: on a regeneratively managed ranch, so rotational regenerative grazing, like we talked about, and that's really moving the animals intentionally to create that biologically active status where you're moving them before they eat all the roots from the plants and move them onto a next pasture to eat until the plant gets down to a certain height, and then you rotate them to another pasture. And that movement and that biological activity is really what drives regenerative ranching and regenerative grazing practices. The other place we believe beef cattle should be is instead of an outdoor pen, on dirt where the manure just drops and can be used as compost material. We believe that they should be in a slatted floor covered barn, a slatted floor with rubber matting on top for cattle comfort. But when we do that, we can collect all of that manure freshly daily and convert that into both renewable natural gas, methane, and a high-quality soil fertility product, a soil amendment product that really acts as food for microbes in the soils, which drives improving those soils. And so the healthier the soil, the healthier the plant, the healthier for us as human beings.
I love that. See, I love that. I want more of that. So now, at this point, how can we spread that for more farmers, like integrate that? Like, obviously there's probably a cost to changing the way they're doing things. So are you providing some kind of, is the government helping with incentives for farmers to be able to integrate regenerative agriculture, or how we can convert more farmers to this kind of farming?
Well, I do believe that capitalism is one of our planet's greatest problem-solving mechanisms, and the reality is, the definition of insanity is expecting different results by doing things the same way. We have to do things a little bit differently, and so, like I had mentioned, rather than the conventional model or the historical model of going to ranch, to feed yard, to processor, we need more regenerative ranching practices. We need to have more money available for ranchers to grow their herds. And right now, the United States has its lowest herd population in the last 75 years. In order to have more animals born on these ranches, we need to not only it's not a matter of fighting over who gets the biggest piece of the pie. We got to make the pie bigger by creating new revenue streams. In our case, it happens to be through producing renewable natural gas and soil fertility out of a waste product that exists today.
Okay. And now, are you finding that it has been lower just because the demand has been lower, or just what's been out in the media saying, oh, eat less red meat, or, there's controversy sometimes about that. Do you think that plays a role or a part in that?
Well, I think the positive thing is people continue to buy beef.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love it.
We do believe that it's the most nutrient-dense animal protein that exists, and everything's in a balance.
Yes. I love that you bring that up, because I've been really curious, and I'm always a science project with my own body and my health. And I've tried it all. I've gone through raw diets, whole plant diets, and all these things just to see how my body reacts, because I'm very much intuitively heal my body. I feel like my body will tell me what I need. That's where I'm at, that part. I actually will sometimes pray on it, listen. It's like, oh, you need more magnesium, you need more. It will actually let me know, but it's also blending science, what's out there with Eastern medicine and Western medicine as well. I'm not, black and white on both, but what I have noticed is that my body does crave beef, and good quality beef. And so I started deep diving as to what's in beef and what's, I've taken many nutritional classes. I've talked with other doctors. In fact, I brought my son to a brain clinic here locally, and we did brain scans, and then they talk about nutrition and what to add, and the amino acids, the omegas, and as a woman in her 40s and 45, like just the creatine and all that, well, that's what beef has. All the top qualities. Actually, because I don't want to miss a thing, I have actually downloaded everything from, other platforms, other doctors that actually really explain all, and
you've seen the new food pyramid that was released recently.
Yes, I'm really, really excited about that. And I've noticed that with just my body. Actually, I went to film documentary series, Writer's Island, and they have the most incredible food cooked for us every single day, just farm to table. But one thing they did not have for the whole week was beef. And I felt my energy and all that by the end of the week. I was really lacking. I was really craving it. So it was really interesting. They had everything else, like from fish, chicken, and whatnot. But it's something I definitely think, depending on everybody, I'm not prescribing anything, but here's the benefits. Here's what I have that I definitely, like, it's a complete protein, all 9 essential amino acids, creatine, which now that's being a big supplement, especially they're saying for women, I know for me, that's why I train and build muscle for bone strength, longevity, even, just I do a lot of yoga and stretching and just more of longevity, and keeping that muscle as well. So I know for my son as well, after the brain scan, they had mentioned making sure they have all the aminos, also the omegas, which Iron, which is huge for
Huge in beef.
Huge in beef for brain and body roles. They say for hemoglobin formation, which is oxygen transport and energy metabolism, and for memory, attention, cognitive development. I mean, there's vitamin B12, which we need so much of. Actually, as a woman, maybe too much info, but when you have your cycle, I actually boost up eating beef, and I crave it because, we need more iron during that time. We need more vitamin B12, zinc for the immune system. So it has all of that, vitamin B6, choline. I remember I would take choline supplement when I was pregnant, and selenium, huge for the thyroid. And, I eat the Brazilian nuts, but beef, that quality that's in there, the omega-3 fats, those are for the brain again, and the brain functions. So all to say, all these micronutrients are in that dense steak, in that quality. So if we can have more quality beef out there, like changing the soil for all of the foods, really, all the food groups, right? I mean, living in Alaska, I had chickens. So I would pay top end chicken feed that did not have all the ingredients, the stuff that I didn't want in it.
Sure.
But then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm paying so much for these chickens. I'm better off to go buy or maybe organic at the store. But it was just me putting in the work and the quality. And I would see when I would crack those eggs, the yolk was so orange, so vivid, and so nutrient dense. I loved it. And you saw the difference when I'd travel and buy just the regular old eggs. So that's why I was really excited to get you on here, because I think there's misconceptions about, I should really avoid red meats. And I'm kind of like, maybe revisit that, and see how your body feels. Everybody's different. Everybody's different, but be curious. Just be curious and maybe start integrating it. I feel, for me, it provides so much strength and energy, and plus it tastes really good.
Tastes really good. And as they say, beef, it's still what's for dinner. Yeah,
I'm going to the steakhouse tonight. So, so I just feel like for brain-wise, for health-wise, muscle, and all that, I think this is an important industry that needs to be addressed. And I think regenerative farming definitely needs to be on the rise or spoken about, or even how we can help bring awareness to that industry and how we can support it as well. Is there ways that people can help and support this industry right now?
Yeah, buy more beef and ask for more beef. But it's not just beef, but the entire supply chain. So corn, there's better ways to produce corn. There's been tremendous evolution in how we produce corn, but there's also tremendous opportunity to improve the soils in which that corn is grown to produce healthier corn, which is eaten by the animals, which become healthier and ultimately consumed by human beings. So it is a virtuous cycle of continuous improvement.
Yeah, it's soil-based. And I can't help but get curious as well, because I'm always curious as for the processing of the beef. So once you guys are either ready to be, slaughtered and taking that process, is there a different process to that compared to other processing systems that can provide? Like, for example, I imagine if I went out and did my own hunting and whatnot, I would pray over that beef and say, thank you for providing this nutritious food. Wouldn't that be wonderful if we can do that to the animal beforehand? That, I think just changing that process. So then because they're a living being.
Well, there's a lot of certifications that require halal for the Islamic population. The Orthodox Union is a certification for the Jewish faith, where there is certain ways in which you disassemble the animal and things that you have to do.
What is it called again? The meals that I remember that from when I was a flight attendant. You would order. There's a name for it again. I forget. Where it's prayed over, and
you've got halal,
yes,
and
I forget.
There's a lot of different,
yes, yeah.
I wouldn't say certification schemes, but acknowledgments by faith in which the animal is processed. But it's all about how it's disassembled versus how it's produced.
Okay. Okay.
But I think we do a pretty good job overall in our agricultural systems. We just need to do better. We need to get into that virtuous cycle of continuous improvement because we learn new things every day. Yeah. And, again, I mentioned before, we believe cattle should be either on a regenerative ranch, an active biological pasture, or in a slatted floor covered barn, because it not only allows us to convert that waste and ruminant animals, meaning four stomach animals, like which cattle are, dairy and beef cattle, they waste about half the calories that they consume through their rear end. And so one pass through a rumen doesn't come close to optimizing the calories that they intake. And we use nature, the sun. We need sun, soil, and water. We have one integrated, beautiful biological system on this planet. And when we do things in balance, we optimize the biology and the production of all of it.
Okay. And so now you're doing this in Arizona. And so how big is your, the acreage out here? How big do you have right now to do regenerative
Well, we can. So that's a loaded question. We know that the Midwest has the most biologically active soils, the corn belt or the grain belt as we know it. Most of the corn and grains get, if you just looked at the I states, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, North Dakota, and so forth, you have tremendous amount of row crop production. Out here, you don't have a whole lot of agricultural production unless it's irrigated, intentionally irrigated, and that's heavy out in Yuma and further out west. But northern Arizona's got a lot of ranching, and so the beauty of ruminant animals like cattle is they eat things that human beings can't. So they eat calories that we can't. We can't go out and eat the grasses that they eat, and so we need them on our lands, and we need them properly managed, and that requires human intervention.
Okay. Well, yeah, this is very fascinating for me, and I'm just really excited to know that there's people like you working to change that for the animals, for us, because in my book, The God Connection, nutrition is huge to bring in light in our bodies, our temple, to keep it sacred, and actually to bring in scripture from the Bible. Solomon, right? He's known as the wisest, the king, the strongest man. Well, they do talk in the Bible. What was his nutrition? Beef, chicken, bread, and cream, like dairy. So even Jesus talks about the importance of this kind of nutrition. And I found out, I have to find the scripture name, but I found it fascinating. So it was, so in 1 King chapter 4, verses 22-23, it was red meat, poultry, and bread. So iron and zinc, creatine for muscles. Job chapter 29, Solomon, richest man, king, wisest. So it's even in the Bible, right? So I think it's calling us back to protect our temple. What does it need? And I always say we're all not built the same. What I need is not what you need, and we're uniquely created. But start listening and observing how you feel after you eat this kind of food, the quality of the food. And that's why I am really picky as to what I put in my body, in balance too. Right. I enjoy French fries here and there, and
you got to have an indulgence every now and then.
Yes, exactly. But I notice that some foods deplete me, and some foods provide me with light and protection. And ultimately, that's what we need to protect ourselves and bring in more light to keep us strong with vitality, our minds staying sharp, because too much toxins in the body, let's say the animal is constantly grazing all these toxins, and then we eat it, then we're overloaded. I've noticed, it seems like about around the 40s, we've kind of played this lifestyle, and a toxic load starts rising. And we start noticing that we're overloaded in these toxins, and we're starting to see brain fog, fatigue, and certain chronic illnesses to show up. And so this is why detoxing and noticing what you're eating to lower the load, the toxic load, and incorporating. I do red light, working out and things like that. And I even had mentioned GLP-1s, helping with the glucose and debunking the myths. Actually, I've been really trying to get a doctor to talk about peptides and just being really clear about that, not removing the fear and the misinformation out there. So this is why I think this is so important, because ultimately we want to stay in the light, right? And I know you, on a personal level, you've shared with me some hard times in your life as well. And I know you have children listening and all that, but I just, for the audience to know, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, and a man that's gone through some hard times through divorce and whatnot, and can you see what you see now, how the ego came in at one point in your life, and it was a dark time, and just maybe planting that seed. I'm always like, if somebody hears that story and they see the strong man, the CEO, the entrepreneur, and who had gone through some dark times, but how to almost prevent that, right? For me, it's like, don't wait till you get to that stage. Start now with these small wins to create more light inside your body through nutrition, spiritual practices, to, connection, community. So I just would love to share what you're comfortable in sharing.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Melissa. One comment on the GLP-1. I lost 70 pounds in less than a year, and my body only craved good whole foods. And so those were the only foods that I ate. And my doctor, Dr. Richard Lee at the Mayo Clinic, he's a cardiologist at the Mayo Clinic, said if everybody that was clinically diagnosed as obese, and I'm not certain what that body or that BMI number is, he goes, but if everybody that was clinically diagnosed as obese went on a GLP-1, half the hospital beds would be empty and he'd be able to retire.
But see, this is where, because I followed many doctors advocate for different peptides. I know peptides is going to be the new wave, but I think with the FDA and all that, it's keeping it almost at bay for now. But this awareness, it's true. It would make less people sick, It will. I mean, you alone, nobody can take away your story, right? And how it's provided so much benefits for you. Yeah,
so I don't say I'm a recovering alcoholic. I prefer to say that I was an alcoholic and now I'm not. I'll call out an organization called the Dunamis Initiative. I'm fortunate enough to serve on its board, but a local doctor, Dr. Don Middleton, who is, I won't say he used to be an alcoholic. He thought that AA was a phenomenal 12-step program, but it fell short with calling the higher power the higher power.
Yes.
And he acknowledges Jesus Christ as the higher power. And I had tried AA, and it didn't resonate with me. Not that the 12 steps didn't, because they're fairly tried and true and have been since the mid-30s, I believe. But acknowledging Jesus Christ as the higher power was really what kind of motivated me. And I grew up, in a Christian household, grew up in the Lutheran Church, became Catholic in college, raised my kids in the Catholic Church. I would consider myself more of a non-denominational Christian now, but I was more concerned about other people looking at me as being a Christian versus actually being a Christian and living like one.
Kind of going through the motions. Sometimes, go to church and do the motions.
Sunday morning Christian, if you will. Mm-hmm. Yet my actions and behaviors and my addiction didn't allow me to be. And everybody that's got an addiction is a liar. In my case, alcohol was my addiction, and we're all liars, narcissists and liars. And you can't be sober in thought while you're under the influence. And so I spent several years seeing a therapist to address my own demons that I was using alcohol as as self-medication for.
Yeah. What were used? Like, what was oftentimes there's something we didn't want to see, right? Or something we didn't want to, And what was that for you? What was that for you that it was so hard to
Loss.
loss?
I had a pretty good upbringing, but I lost my twin sister earlier in life, and probably never really learned
How
to
old
grieve
were
and cope.
you? I didn't know that.
34 years old at the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, but twin sister, yeah, which you have such a bond, especially what they say with twins, right? Like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was hard, and of course I had never lost anybody prior to that was that close, and I never really learned how to grieve through that, and I just got angry, and rather than dealing with it and getting help and seeing a therapist. By the way, anybody that's going through a trauma, whether it's the loss of a close loved one or divorce, which to me was the toughest thing I've ever gone through in my life, you can't do it alone. And I think in terms of my own path to sobriety, realizing that I'm powerless, and I was. I needed help, not only through other people, but this guy upstairs, Jesus Christ, God. They either exist or they don't. And I had a lot of things that happened to me personally that okay, there's a sign, but I would ignore it. And then something else would happen. I'd make a poor choice, and then God would have my back, and I'd ignore it. But finally, what ended up getting me sober and really taking it seriously was, and I really don't want to go into the details, but I should have been in jail with drinking and driving, and the policeman, and I won't say what.
We'll call them angels. The angels.
Well,
right?
and that's what they were. And I'm starting to, doubt whether this event even happened or not, because they prayed around me and gave me a ride home. And that was the last time I ever touched a drop of alcohol.
Wow.
And
so it took that, because that's where I'm always like, because I know people in this situation right now, and everyone's outreaching and whatnot, but it ultimately has to come from you being ready, to see those signs. And I'm always curious as to what really got you to pivot and seek out help.
Recognizing that God does exist, because it wasn't just one thing. It was a series of things. Okay, I meant for more. Okay. And I wanted to be a better leader, a better partner, a better friend. I was complicit in my divorce through my alcoholism. And you can't claw back the hands of time. But what you can do is your past does not have to define your future, because the past is data, but the future is untold. It's not unraveled yet. And when you're not just abstinent from your addiction, but when you're sober in thought, your mind is healthier, your faith life is healthier, your body is healthier. You can do some amazing things. And God blessed me with some of the most amazing partners I could ever imagine. I couldn't have done it on my own. God had to intervene to have guys like Todd Churchill on my team, who is one of the most knowledgeable beef cattle guys in the country. Russ Conser, one of the most knowledgeable energy men. Bill Rubis. We've got a really amazing team that I couldn't have done randomly. We all came together at the right time for the right reasons, with the right common purpose of wanting to do what's right.
What's right. So ultimately what I'm hearing is, first, become aware that there's a higher power. There's someone there knocking. It's knocking, sending you these little signs. And finally, when you're ready to accept that there's a higher power, that God is there, he's like, let him in. Like, he's knocking at the door. But like you said, you ignored him several times.
Most of my life.
Most of your life.
Most of my life.
And then finally, something, hard, and could have gone so many other ways. And you're like, wow, this only happened because there's Jesus Christ. Like you said, Christ was there with you and you saw it. And so then now, because you chose light in the good path, the right path, more things aligned in the light.
And they continue to do so. Mm-hmm. I think bad things happen to good people every day. It's not a matter of if, it's always going to be when, but how you react to adversity. I don't know how you can do it without being a believer.
Oh yes, I couldn't have. That's why my group. I mean, I've always had faith. That's what I was raised in with my mom and whatnot. But once my husband passed, oh my gosh, there was no doubt, and there's no way. I look back to that first year. They're like, "How did you do it?" Well, it was all God. God along the way gave me that strength, aligned me with the right people. But I also had to kind of choose light.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, it takes many of us to hit a rock bottom and lose everything that's important to us.
I see that sometimes.
My marriage,
yes.
The respect of my children, it doesn't have to be you have to lose everything.
I know, but that's why I want you on there to say that, because I see people on that path right now. I'm like, they're going to have to lose everything because they're not seeing it. God's knocking. And I said, I know what's coming next because I've heard this story.
And I was on the verge of suicide.
Wow.
And, I've shared the actual incident with you, and
yes,
I don't want to share that.
Yeah, I know. You did.
Podcast.
And I'm so honored. And honestly, because when did you reach out to me? I mean, it was on social media, and you shared with me. And this is why I started a podcast, because so many people share and I was like, well, your story, it will change so many other people right now. They're listening. I know that. Because I don't want them to wait till they lose everything. They don't have to. They could start now.
Well, they don't have to lose everything that's important to them, and even more so, they don't have to take their own lives.
Their own lives, yeah. Because I know you shared that with me, and you're here right now. God saved you that day. It's like, nope, not your time, but it still... You didn't, you kind of kept going for a little bit.
There was always signs. I just refused to look at them. Mm-hmm. And then it took, that one final event, like a 2x4 slapped across my forehead that said, okay, dummy, what else, what more do you need? Yeah. Wake up.
So at that point, you said you the divorce, and you said the relationship with your children was maybe straining, mm-hmm. and so, and work related, was that affecting work as well? Or
absolutely.
Yeah. So everything was spiraling.
Everything was spiraling.
Yeah.
And, but there's always a better day, but you have to, humility is the hardest thing for people in addiction of any kind to truly get humble and realize that they're powerless of being able to manage a life turnaround alone.
And do you think it's, speaking just for you, and I know I could think of my husband, like humility to really shine and say, well, yes, I need help. I am now lost control of my, my addiction to alcohol, to the, pain pills. I'm just talking towards my husband right mm-hmm. now. But because he was so afraid of what his identity, what everybody thought of him, he thought, oh, nobody's going to think of me so highly anymore as that wonderful dentist, that wonderful husband, that wonderful friend. But everyone would have just accepted him just the same. It wouldn't have changed the story of who he is. But just like more than anything, people would have respected, like, wow, you need help. That took a lot of humility, right? But he couldn't face that.
It's because of fear.
Fear. Yeah, fear creeps in.
It all comes down to fear.
To fear.
And I don't believe you can conquer fear without faith.
Yes. That's what I say is gosh, when fear comes in all aspects of your life, I always call in, as like when my mind sometimes will veer off and spiral, because now I could observe it. I say, fill me with the Holy Spirit and fill me with light, and take deep breath, because I know breath is a way to bring in more light. So fill me with more of the Holy Spirit. And I know sometimes when I speak of God and Holy Spirit and Jesus, it almost causes this barrier for some people, this wall, because either they've been hurt by, whatever, and
a lot of people jump to church, and that's the organized side of faith. But if you really dive into Scripture, that's not church. That's Jesus calling, and all inspired by God. And every morning, I've got a wonderful gentleman who was key in my sobriety, Dan Weed. He is a retired care pastor from CCV, Christ Church of the Valley, a local
I've heard,
large church down here.
Yes, I've heard great things about it.
when I started meeting with him, that's when he brought in Dr. Don Middleton and the Dunamis Initiative that really started getting me on that path. But every morning he sends out a Bible verse, and every week we focus on a different chapter in the Bible. And so we don't get wrapped around, let's get one verse and talk about it. What does that mean to us on a daily basis? How do we become better men, better friends, husbands, fathers, coworker, colleague, whatever you want to call it? But keep it grounded in something. It's not focused on your addiction. It's focused on how do you become a better man, whether it's a man of God or whether it's a better human being, and regardless of what denomination or faith system that you have. How do you become better every day? And how does the Bible help support that? What does that look like? That's a daily discipline.
It is.
And we get together every Sunday and we talk about every day's verse. We go through Monday through Friday's verses, and the dialogue and conversation that it really sparks is quite amazing. And when I don't go on Sundays, when I'm traveling, it's really painful for me because it's my fuel for the day.
Yes.
Monday isn't the start of the week for me. It's Sunday.
It's Sunday. I love that. It's so true. I have similar practices that I do as well, just to read the word, to breathe it in, and how it is so important. So now I'm just always curious because there's some people listening and they might be, issues with alcohol or drug or whatever. There's so many addictions. But,
absolutely.
What other modalities you've done, as far as you mentioned therapy, but you mentioned, of course, that faith, this was the foundation. Did you try any other modalities as far as for recovery?
Oh yeah, I tried taking a drug that would reduce the cravings for alcohol, and I tried pretty much everything. But it took getting slapped across the head is that final.
Did you ever go to like one of those where it's 3 months or? You treat or anything?
I didn't go into a 30-day inpatient clinic, but I did do during COVID, I went through a online, during COVID, you couldn't go into these places. I did that and that didn't even work. And I don't think that any recovery program was going to work for me because I wasn't ready. I hadn't had that slap upside the head, and you think I would have because I had lost my marriage and so forth, and I was totally complicit. It was all my fault. I don't blame her. I screwed up the dream, and I'm paying the price, and I always will. But that doesn't mean that I can't go on building a productive, wonderful life. I've got amazing kids. I've got amazing friends. I've got an amazing career, and
but look what you've learned from here on in too. So God only, often gives you what that role that you have right now of spreading His word, and how important that was in recovery and in your life on a daily basis. Because if you keep not bringing in the Holy Spirit, then you can spiral.
That's right.
Right.
You have to have I don't know how you can do it without a faith. Yes. You had asked me, what do I stand for in the past, and I think the worst piece of advice or comment I ever heard in my life was a guy that I worked with many years ago said, because he was causing me injury, and said, hey, don't take it personal. It's just business.
No.
Run away from those people because business is very personal. That's how we spend most of our waking hours in our careers or jobs to provide. Our livelihoods are important for providing for our families. So we can't eat, shelter ourselves and fuel our bodies and all of that without an income, without a livelihood. But I personally stand for faith, family, and fitness. I didn't always stand for those things, but I do now. And how am I different in the work environment, my work self? Well, those faith, family, fitness is very important in my work too, but we've kind of notched it up to food, fuel, and fertility in terms of what we do with permanent farming. So I'm a big fan of the letter F.
Okay, I like that. And look at that. Your work now follows your value, your core value. So it aligns more. It's a healthier environment on a whole. And I think that's important for a lot of people that are kind of changing careers and finding a better kind of like home. Like you said, you spend more time. Like even my husband, when we're in a dental office, this is like you're there more most of the time than at home.
That's right.
Right? So it's important who you surround, your environment that you're constantly
Absolutely.
around.
And all of my colleagues are believers too. So.
Yeah. I like that. Well, whoever I do business with, even the studio, is a believer. Whoever I'm going to connect with and do business with now, we have got to align on all platforms as well, because they're going to know my passion and my purpose for this as well, and help me integrate and understand their bigger picture, right? And because it does take community, right?
It does.
And to reach the masses, and that's where I want.
Takes a village.
It does take a village. And I just honor you for coming here, and sharing your personal story, sharing what you're doing right now as well. Because
it was you doing what you did and sharing your story that really inspired me to want to connect with you to begin with. And that had to be hard.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I really, that's why I'm so grateful when people do. And I'm like, wow, that you felt that you could share your darkest days with me. I feel a true honor, because sometimes I'm like, you have imposter syndrome and whatnot. And I'm like, wow, okay. And I think God has allowed me to have this story now. So I can connect with so many other people, and I understand the depth of darkness and how it could kind of really take over. I saw that with my husband, and he was not a believer. Once we had children, because in my early 20s, I had kind of gone off. My circle of friends, nobody talked about God much and whatnot, so kind of got out of it. Even though with me and my mom, we would talk about God. And then so when I married, it wasn't something that his foundation. But once we had kids, I said, oh, I really want to instill that in our children. So I'm going to start going to church with them. And he would never want to join us. And I felt awful, because sometimes our office was open 6 days a week. So our only day off together sometimes was Sunday. And I felt bad, but at the same time, I was craving it. Yeah. I was really craving it. I remember stepping back in church, and after a long time, and the emotions that I felt, just crying, and it just felt like, oh, I really needed this. And, and I just saw that he would not allow it, even though he could play the guitar. And sometimes I was like, oh, church has changed now. You can make it fun, and, go play the guitar, at least come in to do that. And it was always the no. And even as a little girl, would go up cute and dad, come with us. So it's, because they enjoyed it. And so I do see the importance of that, of the higher power, because then you spiral into more darkness. I saw it, I felt it. And then it creates such a wall. You don't see the love around you.
That's right.
You don't see the light anymore.
I would encourage people that are not comfortable going to a church to search a home group or a neighborhood Bible study. There's more than one way to worship.
Yes.
And
I like that.
I know there's a lot of people that are uncomfortable with certain churches, but go on and shop for another church. Find the vibe that you're comfortable with, and there's limitless opportunities to find a place to learn more about evolving your faith. It's not just inside the four walls of a building.
I like that you said that, because it is so true now. I mean, even in my community now, there's different little pop-up, Bible studies. Actually, I was just messaging a friend. I said, I really feel called to, with my breath work, to incorporate prayer right before. I kind of already do that with the breath, but let's semi-Bible studies, but breath work, mm-hmm. And then you incorporate both. And there's so many different kinds now and different groups, especially men's group and whatnot. And I love just speaking the word, which is so important. And instead of your thoughts spiraling in the past and the shame and the guilt of what's going on right now, just fill it with the word, and because I know even in the Bible, we'll just read through it, and sometimes to correlate it to your own life, it could be confusing. Like, what does this mean? Truly.
That's right.
So to dive deeper, I even sometimes chat GPT. I'm like, put in this verse, and I'm like, okay, can you just explain it more now in life right now, in my life, and how I can incorporate this better and get closer to Jesus.
And there's so many different translations and Bibles. I have a New Living Translation Bible that really breaks things down, and I get to understand that. And then in the group that I'm in on Sunday mornings, we cover all walks of life. I mean, there's doctors, pastors. Labor, it doesn't matter what you are, but we have one common bond of being men who want to do better for ourselves and our families.
That's good. And it does start with better for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
The more that you do for you, get to know you, self-realization, then you can show up for everybody else around you much better, right? And spending time with you, with the Word. And
the focus on health allows you to feel better about yourself.
Yes. More confidence,
more
right?
More confidence.
Yes. But then that's where I like to blend science with, like you said, the GLP-1s, or there's different, different modalities that you can bridge to feel better. Because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm trying it all and I'm not getting to where I want. Well, it could be a deeper rooted. It could be, an imbalance of the way you're processing glucose. And, so there is a science to it as well. I say I'm always a science project. So start getting curious and how to find that clarity in your mind and feel good in your body. Yeah, I exercise, because I feel good. I notice it when I miss a couple days, and I'm like, oh, I got to go. I think it was last Friday. I'm like, oh, I had missed 2 days. And I'm like, okay, I'm going for a walk. And then I'm just jumping into this fitness facility. It was 6:30 at night. And I'm like, my body craves it, and
Absolutely.
It feels so much better. And there's so many benefits.
Those natural endorphins, you get from working out are amazing.
Yeah.
Improves your mind, your cognitive, your memory retention, everything. And there's a lot of science that supports all that.
Absolutely. So I'm just deeply honored. So I'm curious, what's your favorite verse? Do you have a favorite verse or something that stands out lately?
You know what? I got some, I like Proverbs. I like the book of James. Maybe not so much of a verse, but one of my favorite characters in the Bible is the Apostle Paul.
Okay.
Used to be Saul, and he was a bad man, and he turned his life around for Christ. And so that's kind of my anchor in terms of my own, personal journey of thinking I was one man, but I was really, through my actions, behaviors, another man. I saw the movie The Apostle Paul. I can't remember who produced it, but saw that shortly after, that 2x4 across the head that that's when things really started to change. And everybody has the capacity to transform where they're at.
Yes.
And the toughest thing for a lot of people is to truly believe and understand that the past does not define your future.
Yes.
If you can get past that, and it doesn't have to be Steve Polski with Melissa on a podcast, talking about it. If believe it. For some people that would never go on a podcast or feel uncomfortable doing it, hit your rock bottom, and only you can know what that rock bottom is. But at some point in time, there's enough signs and enough poor choices and mistakes. How can you go any lower?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Don't wait till
I saw. Don't wait anymore. Don't wait for a miracle, or wait for some Don't wait for it to be as clear as it was for me that I hit my rock bottom.
Yeah, start believing it now.
Start believing it now.
Believing. I love that. I think that's such an important message, and it's such an honor. And I hope this really reaches the people. I always pray on it. I pray on every episode before we launch it to reach the people that's supposed to, even if I say it's just one person, where they start to believe in incorporating these small wins every day and reaching out. And how beautiful is that? Because if we change that for one person, they have a community around them. This could be then leave a legacy to their children. I always say, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? For your kids, if they saw you change just like your kids did, they're like, wow, my dad was so strong to allow himself to change, to choose to change, to believe it, to do the work, because we were so worthy, of him being healthy for us. And now, you'll be there for a long time, seeing them grow and grandkids and all whatever happens throughout, right? And that is so important.
I think faith is, there's a lot of cliches out there, but, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. How do you grow your faith?
Yeah.
One day at a time.
One day at a time. Oh yeah. My faith has grown, tremendously. And every day I learn some more. Like you said, you read different books of like the Bible. For me right now, I've got into the Gospel of Thomas, and then so it's just dives even deeper and understanding it and the prayers and those foundations, and seeing, how important that is on a daily basis. I read the prayer protection every day as I speak also more about God, and with my work and my book, I also see things sometimes, darkness or things come under attack almost, right? So I have to keep myself so protected that it just kind of deflects, or I could stay calm. Like you said, things will always happen that are bad. Like for example, I park my cars in a parking lot and I'm walking to this appointment and I hear crash, I'm like, oh great, somebody backed into my car. But I just like, okay, whatever. I didn't start screaming and yelling at the guy, just like walked out very calmly. It's like, okay, well, that's kind of unfortunate, but okay, let's just go through the motions. He's like, wow, you're very calm.
Well, nobody died.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody died. How bad can it be?
Yeah, and the man is like, he's calling his wife to find out information. He's like, wow, I have a very nice lady here that I backed into the car. It's like, what do you want me to do? And it was really funny, the process. And I said, well, there's going to be bad things, but it's how I'm going to react, and how I'm going to show up for that day. There's always a reason. I think God was telling me sometimes I'm not very patient on things to progress. Like, I want my book done. I want this done. And it was just like, it's a slow process once you get hit, dealing with insurance, and
Absolutely.
I'm not very patient. And he's like, okay, you're just going to have to wait it out and get your car. I had to get my mom to drive me today. So I'm just saying that, yes, bad things are still going to happen, even if you're living in that faith and in the light every day. But when bad things going to happen, you're going to be prepared and calm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's just good advice in general. When things happen, don't react. Think, breathe, pray. And I was always one to react, and be slow to make decisions sometimes.
Yes, slow. That was another lesson for me. Sometimes it was one way it's really good. I'm decisive. I can make fast decision. When I'm ready to go, I go head first, and but.
And there's a time and a place for those.
Yes, there's a time and place for that. It's done really well, but sometimes I have to really pause. Like, okay, where is that fast, quick decision? Is it coming from my heart or out of fear? So I have to really kind of pause for that. Is this coming from God, or is it coming out of fear that I'm wanting to move fast? So that's where I really have to watch out for.
Fear is always the root of poor choices.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm still learning. I've done a lot of those this year, and I'm very lucky that I have some patient people around me sometimes.
I think and I'm not going to call it wisdom, although some might misconstrue it as that, but when you accumulate enough poor choices, you want to make less of them, call it wisdom or something, or just hard lessons learned. But you always learn more through trial and tribulation than you do from success.
Yeah.
And always be humble in success, because success is fleeting.
And also like the humility. Once you maybe notice, okay, I made that decision out of fear and it wasn't the right one, showing up and communicating that in a calm manner. Say, okay, I'm showing up, but here's what I'm doing now to repivot or realign myself. And so I think that's just a lesson here. And so is there a final message you'd like to share, or anything that we didn't touch on? Because I feel this touched on a lot, and I know the Holy Spirit will work to bring this.
I would just say for anybody that is going through a storm or a tough season in their life, that when things seem hopeless, and I've been there more times than once, and there's always hope, but you can't do it alone. That mindset that you're a man or you're a strong woman, or we can't do these things alone. We have to bring Christ into our lives. At least that's what it took for me, to really believe it. Mm-hmm. And then be choiceful who you surround yourself with.
Yes.
Select your friends wisely.
Absolutely.
I've been blessed. I've got some of the best people on the planet in my life, and for a long time, my college buddies that I played football with and had as roommates, 43 years now, we're still thicker than thieves. And it comes down to faith, family, friends, yeah. and again, with in alignment with the F's, it's kind of transcended into what I do for a living. But there's always a better way. And so I would say, what do I want to be recognized for? Continuous improvement.
I like
both my personal life and that which I do to earn a living.
Yeah, and you will be successful, and you are, and we continue to, because you're following all of those.
We can always be better every day.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I work on it every day. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Steve. It was such an honor.
Thank you, Melissa.
Yeah, thank you.